So it is October 15th, 5:30 p.m. GU class 7, I believe it is. No, 6, class 6. And so we're gonna get started right away. And Andrea, I think we'll start with you, wherever she's at. I think she's on here. Yeah.
Can I do a point of order? Hi, Lucy.
Sure.
I don't recognize your name. Are you joining us from Tuesday, or just let me know who you are so I can make notes on our attendance?
No, it's Mary Thomas. I'm on
Mary
my
Thomas.
12-year-old daughter's iPad because we're on fall break in Arizona.
And your hair's up, so you look a little different too.
Yeah, sorry, just women.
So Lucy, who are you really?
Mary Thomas.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
I just changed her name.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I get really confused really quickly, so if I call you Sam or something, don't be surprised. Anyway,
And
yeah,
both John and Nancy are here.
what's that?
And John and Nancy are here. I don't know if both of our names are on it, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll double check attendance here pretty quick. But anyway, let's jump right in. And Andrea's going to do hers first, and I'm going to share some of her paperwork, so you can kind of see some of it. I'll jump around a little bit because there's obviously a lot of paperwork. But Andrea, go ahead. Your group was
it's Operation Care. They are an organization locally here to me that help women and or men victims of like that one's Andre's document.
Okay, so let me go get the right one. Yours, what's the last name on your, or what's the
So
name?
Hatch, and all three of them are A's, but Andrea's will be the last one of the three. Hatch, Andrea.
Okay, do you guys see Andrea Hatch on this one?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. And it's Operation Care, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, super. And
And so basically what they do is they help victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. We live in a pretty small town, and out here, from what I've been told, domestic violence is pretty high, and they help anybody who's involved with that. They have classes for people who are victims, and then they also have like shelters, emergency shelters and things like that, so that anybody who is in a predicament that they need to get out of right away can go get help. They also have a lot of classes for youth and teens. So whether they are victims of it or they live in an environment with it, they are able to get assistance and learn more about how to kind of stay out of situations like that to the best they can. I have not currently been involved with them. We just moved out here last year. So I am not currently involved with them, but I do plan to be. The reason that this was something that was hitting home with me is because in my past, I've been a victim of both. So it's really important to have something like this in place, which is why I chose this organization.
okay. You have a lot of good documentation with it. I think, Kim, was the documentation, the extra documentation, what most people were not attaching to the packages?
Correct. I reminded a couple people, and then they went back and located that.
Okay.
So the Andrea pulled some information off the website, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think I just was.
I did.
Super. And you got interested. How did you learn about them? How did you find out about them?
So I used to work for the city that we live in, and we worked with police officers, and they had mentioned something about domestic violence being high here. So I started to just kind of look things like that up. I didn't really explore this one too deeply until this class. So that made me go deeper into what was available here, knowing that it's something that's a high issue.
Okay. And
And
what-
I do want to get involved. Right now, I'm in the middle of like a master's program. So as soon as I'm done with that, I would like to actually volunteer down there.
And it's in Jackson. What town are you in?
Jackson, California.
Oh, you're in Jackson also?
hmm
Oh, okay. What's that near? I've never heard of Jackson.
It is about 38 miles outside of Sacramento.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
Sacramento area then.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jackson Rancheria is here.
And how did they do on the 990 analysis?
Out of 16, if I'm not mistaken. I'm holding, you have it up. Sorry, I would go to it.
All right, we'll find it here. You did a nice job on all this. It looks great.
Thank you.
Looks like they have.
Yeah, so they had,
Yeah. 16.
yeah, it was a 16. The one that had the 1 point was that the 1E divided by 1H. I'd have to go in there to look at it again. I had a oral surgery yesterday, sorry, so I'm a little out of it.
Page
Um,
9, let's go look at it real quick. Page 9 on the tax thing. Tax return, they call them, Dan.
And I did look up the reviews from people locally, and I've heard when I was working for the city down there, people mention it. And they do rate pretty high just on local people's scales. So they are thankful for it, and they feel like it's done good things for those who need it.
You know how long they've been doing this?
No, but I can
It
look.
is,
I can look.
You know, the government grants, I guess, a ton of, or a big part of what they have for income comes from government grants.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of exposure, of course. But anyway,
I don't see a year. And it does look like they help with child abuse, human trafficking, bullying, elder abuse, all kinds of things. But I don't see a year.
class, do you guys have any questions or any comments? We want you guys to feel free to poke around a little bit on these. Not just make it me and Keem. I'm nice, but Keem's not so nice. Any questions? Okay. Keem, do you have any questions? Anything comes to mind or?
I don't have any questions. I kind of asked my questions through the process with her application. I'm checking if I can see when they were established. I'm on, and Andrea just, sometimes that's more readily accessible on the IRS website.
Okay, I was looking at Dun & Bradstreet to see if I could find it there.
Oh, that's a good idea too. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead. Who's,
Yeah.
who's talking? 'Cause I can't tell.
This is Becca.
Okay, hi Becca.
Hi. Do you know how the programs work? Is it like a direct care? Is it residency? Is it tools and resources education for
It's
provider-
all of
you know,
that. Yeah, it's all of it. They have classes, they have groups, they have programs, and then they also do, like I said, the emergency shelter, so they can, if they have nowhere to go, they can go there. They offer all kinds of different levels, and it looks like they started in 1982. But yeah, so they have classes that the teens can go to, or adults. They have, if I recall correctly, they had a place for like a program for parenting. They have stuff for teenage anger management that's more like a group setting, from my understanding. So kind of like a therapy session. If that answered the question. They have different realms to go into for those things.
How many people are they helping annually? Did you find that anywhere?
I did not find that either. I looked up the reviews, like I said, I didn't have a chance to speak to anybody there.
Okay.
I didn't get I'm trying to see if I can find it now, but I didn't get the exact number of people that are helped there.
And sometimes that's on the tax return, but it's not on this one. It's down in page 2, sometimes in number 1 they put it. All right, maybe if you find that out, just let us know. It's not, it's not required, but so it's nice to know, for $1 million, how many people this helps. $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, about $1 million, because the current year's down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep looking to see if I can find that number. I'm assuming it is probably fairly high just with all the different programs that they have. And again, the high rate of occurrence in this particular area. But yeah, I'll keep looking for that.
Okay. Alrighty. We'll keep moving. Andre, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Alrighty, let's jump to you.
Oh, this is Albert.
What's that?
Yes, I'm pretty ready.
Okay,
Ready.
yeah, we'll go with you, Andre, since I have it on my screen. So let's see who you got here. You got California Commission on Sexual Exploitation, is that correct?
Yes.
And they're in Sacramento. And how did you learn about these folks, or have you helped them before, or tell me a little bit about them?
No, I was just through the process of looking for an organization. I found them, and just based off of what I was looking for, I think that they were a really good organization or chair to go with. They do work on human issues and human trafficking, and they're kind of new, so they don't have a lot of information on them, but the information that I did find started to just kind of show like how they're starting to work. They just got up their services like going the first of this month, so they're pretty brand new to this kind of thing. But I do when I saw them, I just felt like I wanted to follow them through whatever, and not physically, but yeah, just yeah, I don't know. I feel like it hits pretty close to home. So
Good. And yeah, those look like they're brand new. Do they have a tax return?
I didn't see one. I don't think so.
No tax return?
They do the postcard.
Oh, they do?
Is this a postcard one?
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, let me find the postcard. It's a pretty heavy duty organization here. Just, you probably know that, but because they're doing psychotherapy and
Yeah, they their mission is to pretty much, they help with the victims of sex trafficking and or like the victims of sex offense and sex exploitation, and they help them through therapy and other things, and they shelter and rehabilitate some of the criminals, and in a way I would say keep them out of society for at least until they know for sure that they are good to go, I guess.
okay. Kim, is there oh, this is it here. I'm sorry, short form. We should give it a name or something. Name of the organization. They may give you a little bit of trouble. This thing's so new. Because we got what, $5,000 seed care. You did a good job on the form, and that looks good.
And Andre was really specific about what type of passion he was feeling that he wanted to tackle.
Okay.
And he actually ended up looking at several organizations. He went through a slew of organizations to find something that was local, that was not a government program. And then Andre, you did speak to Miss Tara King, I believe it was, from this organization. So he also reached out to the organization and got information from them, since not a lot was available on the GuideStar or on the IRS. They do have a pretty robust website though. And they initially started lobbying was their main role. And then now they're moving into the services arena.
Okay. One thing I want you to do, it won't take you too much time, is just kind of just give us a little story and turn that into Beth, or Kim and Beth, of, how many you looked at, what you were seeing, why you picked this one. Because you may get some pushback on like I was saying, you may get a little pushback on the newness of all of it. The passion's great. Right here, I think is why you selected it. I can get out of sometimes you hit a key and you get other stuff. And so that might be a good thing to include. And there's a chance you may have to do a different one or another nonprofit, but this should suffice for the class. And I've told you all that sometimes we don't approve the nonprofits. Most of the time we do. But if you do a good presentation in class, you've done your assignment and your paper. If you do a good presentation and you do your paperwork, so that's good. Is there any questions for Andre out there?
I have one.
Sure.
I'm Reese. Are they connected with other companies? So let's say, for instance, if it's not safe for them to be in California, are they able to launch them to another state to be safe? You know what I'm saying? Connecting with other people.
Not yet, they're not. Just because they're so new, I just think it's they haven't yet made those connections. So yeah.
How many people work for the organization?
Two.
Two?
Two
Okay.
right now. Two right now.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
And to clarify, this organization is not so much working with the victims to reintroduce them to society so much as the offenders and with rehabilitation in response to Reese's question.
Okay. Rehabilitation of the people that need the help.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, we'll keep on going here. I can move my box up here. There we go.
Good job, Andre.
I cannot find how many people have been like involved in the Operation Care, just so you know. I was searching this whole time, so sorry.
Okay, why don't you send them an email and ask them for me?
Okay.
Let's
Good job,
see.
Andre. He's the youngest one in the class, so props for
Oh, I am?
doing a good job.
Yeah.
Good job, bud.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
We have a special award for you. Kim will give you from her personal account $1,000, just so you know.
Ooh,
Yeah.
sounds great.
That's how she is. All right, let's jump over to
Mr. Hatch.
let's see here. Where's your name on here?
You just passed it, I think.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right there.
Mr. Albert, right there. See, I don't even know the forms at all.
Mhm.
Mr. Hatch, tell us a little bit about what we got going on here.
Mine that I've chosen is a center for fathers and families. This one really hits home for me. Even though I was truly blessed at having a stepfather, my biological father, he was absent. What this nonprofit helps with, they help with like strengthening the bonds and the whole family aspect. And letting the father be the lead and showing his family, you know, how strong they can be. But that's what really resonated with me with this one. They've been, I believe, since 1994, been nonprofit.
Okay.
Also,
I
they
like
do a
this.
lot of
I like this one a lot because fathers need. I mean, it's a big problem in our country.
yeah,
Having good fathers, having men trained to be good fathers, learning to be good fathers, wanting to be good fathers.
and it's
So,
from all different backgrounds too. All
Mhm.
different backgrounds.
How did you learn about these guys?
Actually, just through this process, it kind of just stuck out to me.
Okay.
Albert's another one that went through
I wasn't,
several organizations. Like
Okay.
he was searching for something that
Yeah.
specifically helps youth, and then arrived at this one and was caught by the fact that it's empowering the fathers then to ensure that the youth are supported. So it's kind of secondary to the initial passion, but directly related to. But he's another one that went through several, like he probably did 5 analysis forms before he was like, this is the one.
I was
Very
like,
good.
man. I mean, Keem. I was like, Keem. Sorry, Keem. Yeah, but it's still. I'm thinking about really following up with this particular group because even though I have both of my kids, but 2 of them they're by different mothers. And I just want to strengthen that bond and keep it. Not that it's not strengthened right now, it is, but I just want to really like keep that bond there. So I'm thinking about joining in with them. They got like after master classes for after you complete. They also have like just like learning educational classes for the family, tutoring, all different, you know, kind of things. So that really just stuck out with me.
How
This
many men have they helped, or what is? Do you have any idea how many they're helping? You said since 1994. The last. What are they averaging the last 2 or 3 years as far as helping guys?
I don't think I saw that on there, but I can keep digging a little further. Just 1 second.
Sure. You can get that later if you don't have it. Just so everybody knows, I kind of asked that because one of the things we don't score people on is what the cost per person is, and it varies so widely. But it's also very important for us to kind of have an idea what it is. For example, if you have 2 organizations that you were looking at, and one's doing the same thing as the other one, and one costs maybe twice as much as the other one, then it gives you something to look at and say, well, why is this? Or, why is this other one doing it so much more effectively? But I think it's important to know really how many people are helping.
1,100.
1,100? Okay.
Yeah, 1,100.
Was that on their webpage, or where'd you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says serves 1,100 low-income children.
Okay, so, but that's not fathers. Does it say anything about how many fathers it helps? Not that that's not important, but why don't you do me a favor, see if you can
Catch 'em
just
young.
you don't have to
Okay.
spend a lot of time, but just see if you can find out how many minutes it's helping every year, the last 3 years.
Will do.
On their I think I saw 16 or something on
Yeah.
this thing. Okay. And they were low because of again, it's government grants. That's where all the money's coming from. And in theory, if the government changes, they can lose all that. So
Yeah.
that's just why we give it 1 point. Um Any other any questions from anybody in class? Here? I need at least one question for him. Okay, let me see if I can pull up Brock. And Brock, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay,
Just presenting from
and
Justin's computer.
let's see here. Oh, here it is. Let me find your paperwork. You guys are really doing nice paperwork. Keem's really making you do a good job on this. Just so you guys know. So you guys get to experience Keem's teaching. Your group was and you're in Salt Lake City, is that correct, Brock?
So I'm in Provo, Utah, but yeah, this
Okay.
organization is actually also based in Provo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about it. How did you find out about it? Have you helped them? What's going on?
Yeah, so Utah Valley Refugees is an organization that a friend of mine told me about who has already been involved with the organization for about a year now. She heard that I was in this Giving University class and she was like, "Yo, you should definitely come and help out with ours and do some videos for us," because she'd heard that I'd done like video work for other things as part of just my job. And I guess they're working on their marketing right now. But anyway, I was like, cool, I'll help you out if first I can do my little analysis thing for you guys. So I looked into it and they got, I mean, from the tax form, which is the first thing I went to, they got a perfect 18.
Wait,
Just from
have
doing
you
all the
done
math.
the video yet?
I've not. I'm doing that next weekend.
Okay,
So that's when I'll get to.
I want a copy of it. Okay, I love
Okay.
I love video stuff.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy for sure. I think they're just interviewing a few of the families that they helped out, just talking about, their experience working with the organization and the volunteers. So really, that'll be my first time too talking to someone who's actually been helped by the organization, because so far I've only talked to my friend and then I called them and just talked to a representative. So I just have whatever they told me about it and then whatever I looked at on their website. So but yeah, that being said, their website was really cool, but their biggest flaw was I couldn't find any good like solid numbers on how many people they helped, or it seemed like it was hard for them to track the impact they had on the community.
Okay,
They had a few like
so
written experiences.
we busted them. Huh?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
We busted them.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, "Oh, I don't know," but they have individual experiences that they talk a lot about, and they're like, their emphasis on helping people become self-sufficient is something that I really liked to hear from the representative, because coming from that Poverty Inc. documentary, especially seeing how there's a way better way to help people in poverty, people in need, than just giving them handouts or making them dependent on an organization and their acts of charity. This organization seems to be self-aware of that. And
Here's
from
a
their
number.
website and from the experiences that they talk about.
Here's a number up here. Did you see this number?
Oh, yes.
There you
it
go.
is.
Now, is that for a year, you think? Or you guess? Maybe it's a guess. 160 probably sounds correct. Maybe double check with them. Did you ask them?
Yeah. So
You said,
I
did you
took
say,
some.
did you say you asked them and they didn't know?
No, I asked them and they gave me numbers, but it was like numbers of people that we helped, but they didn't say how exactly those people were helped. They didn't have a way to divide it beyond that. So I didn't know what that meant. Like helped. Yeah, like right there. 160 refugees helped, but they have so many different kinds of services on their website. Like you can sign your family up to be mentors for them, who help them to figure out their tax information and just get settled into the community in general ways, and then just help them through the process of finding a career. That's like one of a bunch of different specific things they do to help people. So they didn't have numbers on the specifics.
They're pretty brand new, right?
How they help people. They're newer. I think I found information on Just Serve that said they'd been around for 6 years.
Okay. They must
So-
have, maybe they just started doing 990s then.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I can't remember how early I could trace their 990s back to, but
On the IRS
Yes.
website, I see until as back as 2016.
Okay, they were using short form because they have no prior year on here, so probably using a short form. Which is fine. I was just curious.
yeah. Cool. Yeah, I feel like I was rambling, sorry. But are there any like other things I should talk
But
about with this
you're
organization?
you're doing just fine.
Okay, cool.
Any questions for the young man? Let me ask one more question. Are there any, like I have a friend in Denver, he's working with refugees now from Venezuela. Is there any particular group of refugees these guys work with?
Yeah, I asked them what their main demographic was, and they said a lot of the people they help are from a part of Africa that now I can't remember, and I'm a little bit embarrassed by that. But their founder is from the Congo, the Dominican Republic of the Congo,
Okay,
and he's currently their executive director. And so there is one demographic for
Okay.
you. Um,
well, we can say they're maybe from Africa.
yeah, I think a lot of them would be, but also in the Utah Valley area, we have a huge Hispanic community too. I don't know. I could see potential for them helping them with their English classes. I know that's a big initiative they push, and so I would imagine their English classes help a good portion of the Hispanic population in the Utah Valley area.
If I may, what struck you most? What stood out to you most about this organization that you just loved?
Yeah, the first moment where I kind of got sold by them, or like the first thing that tipped me towards them, was just hearing how well they answered my concerns about helping people in a way that was actually beneficial to them. Because the friend who I was talking to about the organization who helped them had also seen the documentary Poverty Inc. And she talked with me about it, and she was like, yeah, no, like I like this organization because they actually don't take donations like physical goods from people. Like we just distribute them to them. They're all about education, giving them a career. And so just hearing those initiatives that pushed me towards them. And I was like, well, if this is true about the organization, then I do want to support them. And going in and seeing the initiatives they push on their website, that they in fact do really put an emphasis on giving people skills to pull themselves out of poverty, to put their family on track, to find financial success, and cultural success, like to make friends in their community, is a big thing too, right? A big way to volunteer in this organization is to sign up as a mentor for people. I liked those two things, just emphasis on career and like social success, rather than just kind of scraping by with handouts from the organization.
Okay, any other questions out there? Ladies and gentlemen, maybe one thing to ask them, I don't know if they keep track of if they've helped people place them in jobs. Sometimes, you know,
I didn't.
that's really the ultimate help probably with refugees is
Mhm.
is helping them find a job or get a job.
Yeah, I would love to have numbers on that specifically, like how many careers they were able to help people find, but unfortunately I didn't see any measurements on that specifically. But I'm hoping when I go to help film these interviews, I'll be able to ask them about that and get, some real stories in there. And maybe they'll be better about keeping track of those things in the future. I don't know.
Okay, well, now you have questions that you can ask them. But anyway, it looks really nice. Well done. All those presentations looked really good. Paperwork was done really well. This class is really doing really good work on presentations. So anyway, cool. All righty. Well, we're going to get to our class tonight. Ariel's going to be sharing with us. And Ariel, go ahead and introduce yourself. And then Ariel, you can go till 7:05, so, just so you know. So if
Okay, good to know.
if Ariel doesn't get through every single page, the good news is we give you all of the PowerPoint stuff that we
Okay.
show. So
Good to
anyway,
know, because that was going to be one of my questions. Is I think we got something like 56 slides here, so
yeah,
I will motor.
yeah,
Believe me, but I'm not
you gotta be
sure
good. You gotta be on your game.
all the material this evening for sure. So yeah, I thank you guys. Honor to be here, and I a couple of them at least were changed around. But is it Albert, Andrea? Do you say Andrea
I
or
say
Andrea?
Andrea, but I answer to any.
Andrea. Okay, okay, and Andre. Okay, yeah, I know the feeling. Just about everybody I meet pronounces my name slightly differently, whether it's Ariel, Ariel, Oreo. I even had the nickname Oreo cookies for a while. But anyway, I am honored to be here, guys. My background, a little bit, just so I think why I guess you could say why I'm qualified to teach this, or why I was asked in the first place. I have a background as my parents ran an orphanage in the Philippines, and they were actually in the Philippines for 25 years doing a myriad of different things. My mom is a nurse by trade, and so she's worked in something like 65 different countries, I think when we last counted. So she's been, especially, in the last 3-4 decades that she's been around the world. She's, for a while, for about 2 decades, she was just in about every single conflict that would have been on the news, she was involved in, whether it was wars and warlords in Somalia, or the Khmer Rouge takeover of Cambodia. She worked on the border of Cambodia and Thailand and helping refugees there. I mean, and then in the Philippines and also in Israel, now that that's on the news again. She's been in a myriad of different places. I grew up in the Philippines working with specifically orphanage, and my father was a pastor for a while, but they did all kinds of teaching, all kinds of livelihood projects, primary medical stuff. So I've been involved in quite a few nonprofit stuffs things over the year, and then I also have a background in philosophy. So I got when I was in my college days, studied and philosophies for a while. What does it look to really help people in primary ways, bonding together in an organization? And then what does it look like to hold organizations accountable? And because we all need to be held accountable, whether it's just me setting some fitness goals, or me setting some education goals, or me trying to change the world goals. We need to be held accountable so that we can be really fulfill those goals that we have, and have some metrics to say actually we're effectively doing that. Now I work in wealth management, so I work in financial planning, and so I specialize, I think, in the area of helping and then let's out your goals. And so just to give you a little bit of why behind the what, let me first of all start into my presentation here, and then I'm going to share my screen. Forgive me just one moment while I get set up. All right, tell me you guys can see the main screen here.
We can.
Okay.
Ariel, every once in a while your audio breaks up a little bit.
Okay.
Just so you're aware.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, it's helpful to know, because I'll move a little bit closer to the microphone. I have a microphone. Is that a little better? You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Dan, I actually think it's your connection, not Ariel's, because you're a little laggy.
You guys are good. You
yeah.
guys are good.
Can you guys hear me okay? The rest of you?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then it's my bad connection.
Good to know. Okay. So this is talking about personal finance, and specifically personal finance, and we'll go into a myriad of different things too tonight. But the main why behind the what is working on creating a culture of generosity. As you guys know, though, it's not really possible to accomplish a goal without understanding where you are and then how to get there. And this is true of, the simplest things, and whether, like I said earlier, fitness, or, more complicated things like an organization and changing the world. But it really does start with the individual. And we want to focus this class on how we tonight can focus, analyze, first of all, resources and understand where we are, and then focus on some of the main, I would say, not traps, but some of the pitfalls that people fall in to, and really hinder them in being generous and being examples of generosity. Because that's one of the main things I think that people are going to be looking to use do your actions. You've heard the adage, actions speak louder than words. And I think people are going to be judging, right or wrong, judging each of us by our actions more than they judge us by our words. And we want to be leading by example. So basically, we'll start off tonight here talking about a famous saying. Does anybody know? Anybody know the end of this phrase? A penny saved.
Is a penny earned?
A penny earned. And is it Reese? Is that your nickname? I heard
Yeah.
you say?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Exactly. And Meredith, do you have any idea where this came from? It's an old saying. I think probably we've heard our grandfather, great-great-grandparents say it. But anybody know, Meredith or anybody else know where this come from?
I do not.
Okay.
Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, well done. Who said that? Chris? Jennifer. Okay, Jennifer. Well done. Yes, Ben Franklin, back in the 18th century. So that was the 1700s. And so, yeah, it certainly, why was he saying it? Basically, this idea of earning finances, if you haven't heard it before, it refers to this idea of something that you don't spend actually is money in your pocket. And there's a number of reasons for that. But there is first and foremost this idea that it's not money that's just as valuable as something you didn't spend, but it actually is something that I think is a little counterintuitive until you consider the reason behind it. What I mean is, if you don't spend finances, if you have a penny that you didn't spend, and not only is it 1 penny now that you now have in your savings account, but when you consider things like taxes, and you consider other reasons we'll get into later on, we're going to have actually statements like Andrew Tobias said here in the 1900s, a penny saved is worth 2 pennies earned. Have you guys ever heard of that statement? Andrew Tobias is a little lesser known than Ben Franklin, and probably not as famous a statement. But I want to talk about why. Why do you guys, first of all, think that this is a true statement? Andy, what do you think about this? Is it true that a penny saved is really 2 pennies earned? Could that possibly be true in any scenario?
Yeah, I think it could be.
What would be some of the common things, maybe? Anybody here? What would be some of the reasons that might make that true?
Interest.
Excellent. How does interest work? Basically, I get paid for putting my money in a savings institution, right? So this is the basic cash flow, how cash works. A penny today is going to be worth more pennies down the road. So that's why. Absolutely. Anybody else? Well, I mentioned it earlier, but we also have things to consider, that various payments that we have. So actually, depending on your tax rate, this is going to vary a lot. So we're just using general numbers here, but actually as much as half of your earnings, in fact, for many people, it's far more than that, go towards paying social spending. And this is part of living in a community. We like living in cities. We like living in countries that give us things. We like when people take care of things for us. So just like I pay somebody to make my hamburger, I don't make it myself when I go to Burger King or In-N-Out here in Southern California. I pay the government for various social things that they're doing for me. So in a very common tax bracket, you'll have actually 25% of my income that I earn will go to federal taxes, 10% will go to state, 15% will go to what's called FICA. It's made up of basically federal income. It basically is Social Security and Medicare. And then on average, you'll probably have 8% sales tax, but actually here in Southern California, it'd be far more than that. But that said, this is a very common thing. So when you consider now, keep this in mind. We're going to come back to this saying. First of all, we have a penny saved is penny earned. It's worth more down the road because of interest. But now we're going to add the second thing, taxes, because every time we're earning this income and we're saving it, or every time we're spending it, we're putting money back into the system. We're actually losing part of that to taxes, and not losing, but we're spending part of that on taxes. So it's not just what I spend my money on for that t-shirt or for that burger, but I'm actually paying part of that towards social goods. So did you guys know that it actually takes $8 of earnings to buy a $4 cup of coffee? If you use this method, if 50% of my earnings go towards taxes, actually that $4 cup of coffee is now $8 of my earning power, what I've worked in my job, right? So if I'm getting paid, I don't know, $25 an hour, I think, oh, I can buy roughly, 5 cups of coffee with that if they're each $5. But actually, if I am really considering all the taxes that I'm paying, that $4 cup of coffee quickly turns into $8. You guys understand the basics of this? Again, it's not meant to be like specific numbers. Don't get hung up too much on like, oh, this doesn't apply necessarily to me. The point is here that things have a cost much more than just their sticker label, right? There's a lot to consider, and that's the point we're getting at today. So there has been said a penny saved is actually, we could in some sense say that it's 3 pennies earned. Why would that? Why would we say something like that? Well, because quite often, how do you purchase that cup of coffee or that new t-shirt or that new purse? Justin, how do you usually spend money when you go to the store, or when you're buying power tools, or when you're buying a t-shirt, or when you're buying whatever it is? How do you usually spend money?
Credit card.
Credit card. Yeah, very common. I use credit card a lot. And obviously we're going to use a mix of cash as well as credit cards quite often, but many times, especially nowadays, it's simpler to use credit cards. So many times we're using credit cards, and then it's much simpler not only to spend the money, but then we have this payment plan that's already put in place for us by the banks. So nice of them to do that work for us and put all this effort into having a spending plan for us. But of course, we know that spending plan that they've created for us does not come free. So when you think about the taxes that we take away from the first penny and the interest that takes away from the second penny, because the interest we're paying on credit cards, many times we're looking at a $4 cup of coffee, we're looking at $12 or more. And again, these numbers are not meant to be exact, but you're getting the idea, right? Does anybody have any questions about this, or how I came up with these numbers, or why I'm saying that $1 would turn into 3 very quickly? Andy, can you see how that works? Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So again, these numbers are going to vary from person to person, but we're trying to get ourselves to start thinking about finances from a wise perspective, what I would call a stewardship mindset. One who is wise with money will find money working for you more often than you work for money. A lot of people I hear complaining about, man, I don't want to just work for money. I don't want to just be a slave to this system. I don't, whatever it is that people's financial goals that they're not able to accomplish because, quite frankly, many cases, they don't understand how finances work and how spending works and how interest works, etc. So the first basic thing we're trying to get you to think about is it's not just about the sticker price. Think about the additional costs. So just imagine, for the sake of argument, I know it might not be exact to your situation, but just think of each purchase costing you double or even 3 times what's on the sticker label, all right? If you start there, it'll be a helpful place to start. You'll have to reduce your other spending in order to start paying off the debt. And very quickly, as we'll see in a moment, that debt accrues and gets quickly out of control. So we want to start with a simple exercise. Again, this is not necessarily prescriptive for absolutely everybody, but this is a phenomenal place to start. You'll see, man, if you've ever watched really wise people like Dave Ramsey talk about finances, again, maybe he disagree with some of the things he said, but he certainly has wisdom when it comes to finances, because, I mean, he's an example of it himself, I guess. But he advocates, you probably heard this famous idea of cutting up all your credit cards. And I think that there is a place for credit cards. Like I said earlier, I use credit cards myself, but certainly you want to make sure that you're in a place where you can handle that responsibility. I think about power being something that, is good for people who can handle it, but absolutely terrible for people who cannot handle it. For example, if I give a weapon, a gun to my nephew, and I say, he's only 3 years old, and I say, go out and hunt some food for us, bring it home for the family so we can eat. This is, you think about this and you're like, what kind of loving role model puts that kind of power regardless of what you think morally about weapons, I just use it as an example. What kind of person puts that kind of power in somebody who is clearly so young and unable to handle it? You're asking for trouble. You're asking, regardless of what you think in general about weapons, etc., or hunting. The point is here, it is a terrible idea to put incredible amount of power into somebody's hands who is, quite frankly, not able to handle it. And that's not a slight on him or his character. It's just, quite frankly, he hasn't been trained to handle it. And this is incredibly important. I think this line right here, cut up most or all, if necessary, your credit cards, is a great place to start from. And then you can decide, okay, maybe I'm in a place where I can handle 1 or 2 credit cards. Quite frankly, I work in wealth management. I handle a lot of money and the things. I narrow the use of my credit cards, and to be actually quite frank, just to give a personal example of it, I don't let any of my credit cards go into the interest play stage. So I do not spend any money I don't already have. I use credit cards simply as a transfer mechanism to get points or to, for ease of purpose. And that is a personal decision I've made a long time ago with my wife, but it's not necessarily prescriptive universally for everybody all the time. I completely understand when businesses take on debt, or even when individuals take on debt to buy certain things, especially assets. And I don't want to get too far off into the weeds here, but the point that I want to make here tonight is that it is a good place, I think, for all of us to reevaluate how much responsibility we have underneath it and how much power we have, because we can quickly find ourselves getting into out of control debt. And here's a simple exercise I want to walk everybody through. Justin, consider the following situation. Credit card debt, 24% interest, $10,000 balance, 3% minimum payment. All right. So do you guys all know what a minimum payment is on your credit cards? Meredith, have you ever heard that term before? Minimum payment? What is the minimum payment, Andre? Have you ever heard of the minimum payment on a credit card?
I mean, I've heard people talk about it, like my parents. I haven't really gone into debt over credit cards, just because for me, I do have a debit card, and I'm just right now learning to save, so I don't have a credit card. But yeah, I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Wise parents teaching you the principles of saving and using debit cards. The minimum payment for a credit card, this is something that won't apply to a debit card because it works a little different, but a minimum payment is something that the credit card company, it's a contract that you sign up with them, and they require you to pay a certain amount on your outstanding balance. So for example, if I have a $10,000 overall balance, I might only have $1,000 I've spent, on that, that whatever I spent that $1,000 on. And then the credit card company says, you know what, you only need to pay 3% a month. And so I'm like, great. All of a sudden I thought I bought $1,000 pair of sneakers, right? But actually the bank says I only need to pay 3%. 3% of $1,000, man, that is a lot more manageable than all $1,000, right? So all of a sudden I think I don't have to pay, all I have to do is pay the minimum, right? If I'm a C student, C's make degrees, as they say, so I can just make the minimum payment and get by. Well, what is your minimum payment on a $10,000 balance going to be? That's my first question. So we're just going to go through these questions first, and then we'll come to the answer. The answers in a little bit. But the point is to illustrate first of all, the minimum payment. So if we have a 24% interest, $10,000 balance, 3% minimum payment, what is our minimum payment going to be this month? Second question, how much interest will you pay this month? That's just this month on just this $10,000 balance. And then question number 3, I want you guys to remember, again, we'll go over all the answers, but I'm just going to go through this to illustrate how debt works and how interest works. If you always pay only the minimum payment, how long do you think it would take to pay it off? All right, that's the third question I want you guys to remember. Fourth question is, if you reduce your spending by $200 per month, $7 per day, instead of pay the minimum, how long do you think it would pay it off? Okay, so answers here. First question, you guys. If you have a 3% payment on $10,000 balance, your monthly payment is $300. All right, so that would be basically if you had $10,000, 3% of that is 300, right? Very basic math. But again, this is important to remember. So the kicker is this. 24% annual interest is 2% per month. So your interest is $200. So you spent $10,000. Now only interest. You're not talking about your debt. Only your interest is $200 a month. So of your $300 minimum payment, only $100 reduces the debt. I just want you to see how quickly this is going to build up. Again, is there any questions on how this works? I know this is maybe it's very basic for some, but I want to make sure all these terms don't confuse us, because sometimes these are bank terms that not everybody knows. Is everybody clear? Does anybody have any questions though? Tim, are we all good over there? Okay, excellent. So we have a 24% annual interest, which boils down to 2% per month. Why? Because we divide 24 by 12, 1 month, 12 in a year. And then, so of our $300 payment, only $100 reduces the debt. So look at this graph here. Just basically a simple online calculator is what it is. And you guys can go check out the math later on at creditcards.com. As you can see in the top right, that's where this came from. So the true cost of paying only the minimum, if you had a $10,000 balance at 24% interest rate annually, that boils down to a minimum dollar amount of $25 per what are your components? Percentage of balance, $25. Actually, I don't know why that minimum dollar came in there, but the point is, we were saying earlier of the $300 in the minimum. Forgive me, I think that might be a typo in that line. I might be misreading it there, but it will take 25 years to pay off that debt based on just paying the minimum payments. So even just a simple $10,000 balance, you know, it's pretty easy nowadays with inflation, and as you guys know, with all the expenses of things, it's pretty easy to build this up in a hurry. A $10,000 balance on your credit card probably isn't that hard to do if you have a family and you're trying to buy food and pay rent, et cetera, et cetera. But if we're just making the minimum payments, we're going to be stuck, not including additional debt that we'd accumulate after the $10,000. We'd be stuck 25 years making just the minimum payment. So again, it might look enticing from our eyes when the bank says, you know what, don't worry about paying all that $10,000 off. If you don't have it, you can pay a minimum payment of only $300. But meanwhile, 200 of those dollars are just going in interest. 100 is only going to pay off my debt. Why? Basically, because the minimum payment goes down each month. So it's only going to go down slowly because of the interest. So basically, I'm just going to go through these real quick just for the sake of time. But we have basically an interest table here that talks about the first month. So if you see right here, I hope you guys can see my mouse here. So you talk about these months, and this is what the minimum payment we said is $300, but only 100 of that is going towards the principal, 200 is going to debt. So therefore, my balance at the end of that month is 9,900. Does that make sense? Everybody's pretty clear on this? All right, awesome. And then you can see all the way down at the bottom, I've paid a year now, but I paid a year of minimum payments, all these minimum payments. I haven't gotten, basically, I'm still at 250 at the end of a year and a half, and I'm still only having paid 400, less than 400 of my bill. So you can see how inefficient this goes. And there's an adage that we'll talk about later on, but if you want to buy a $30,000 car, find a $20,000 car on credit. And this is very easy to pay more than something's actually worth in terms of the sticker tag. So basically, we're going to go through these, and this because these basically repeat some of the principles that I was just talking about. So we'll skip them in the sake of time. And actually, just want to check to make sure we got about 30 minutes left. Okay, good. So going down now to debt elimination. This basically is talking about what if you actually had a credit card that you paid $500 a month on your credit card, but continue to spend $300 a month, right? A very more realistic situation. And I'm sure many of us are in, right? Because we're spending constantly. We're not just paying one debt off. Interestingly enough, if you pay the minimum payment, you never pay it off, unfortunately. And you can see here the basic math works out. The $10,000 balance minus $500 payment. So now we're paying a lot more than we were before the minimum payment, $500, but we're also spending $300 a month. And basically, when you actually get down to it, you will figure when you do the chat tables that you'll never pay this debt off. This is a pitfall that so many people, in fact, the average person, when we look here, so, you know, statistically speaking, 50% of us on this call, this is a very real scenario for us, that this is just a part of life and when it comes to credit, because this is, according to statistics, the case for over 50% of Americans. Very real thing, very real scenario. How do we eliminate debt? if you have debt with multiple credit cards, the interest rates are pretty close to each other.
You cut the
Apply-
card up.
Fair enough. I like that. And that's what we talked about earlier. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, if you have debt with multiple credit cards, if the interest rates are pretty close to each other, this is one tactic to eliminate debt that we already have. So yeah, the credit card, cutting up the credit card helps with not expending more debt and creating a bigger problem. But the interest rates, if we have a current debt, we want to make sure that we understand the interest rates. In fact, a lot of people, we get into these credit cards and the things that we notice are the points, things we notice as the credit limit. Very rarely do people have even including myself, I'm guilty sometimes, have a thorough understanding and a memory for what the interest rate is and what the punishment, quote unquote, will be if we get behind on our payments. So the interest rates are pretty close to each other. Apply all the extra money to the account with the lowest balance. That way you can pay off one. And this is kind of, there's different strategies doing this, and you can talk more about the details. You can find plenty of help on these if you Google credit debt elimination strategies. Because there's different types, and some things are more mental in terms of helping encourage you pay off more debt. Some are just more straightforward, like, okay, pay off the highest interest rate first because that's going to be the most expensive long term. But the main point here is one strategy is pay off the first one, close that credit card. Like you said, I believe it was it Andrea who said that, or was it anyway, whoever it was,
Albert.
cut up the credit card. Albert, cut up the credit card after you're done. Forgive me. The
Well,
voice is
only
coming
when
from
you pay it
Andrea.
off. Only when you pay it off, you get rid of
Yes.
it.
Absolutely. Very wise. Yep. So,
But what I did want to ask, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
please.
what happens when you pay it off and you want to cut it up, and other things come up and you find yourself back in the same position?
Yeah. Very challenging very challenging situation. And this is certainly warrants a greater conversation. I think actually, I would love to just open it up if anybody briefly has been in that situation before. When you find yourself in a situation, has anyone ever found themselves in a situation where they want to say cut up a credit card, they paid it off, they worked so hard, and then you have more expenditures that need to be made, and then you're tempted to go right back to where you were, right? What are some things in that scenario that are going to help us? What are some techniques and mindsets that we're going to need to imbibe in order to change that? I think
What do I
that's
want versus what do I need?
Can you explain a little bit more about that? I like that.
Like when I go to the store and I want an energy drink, I don't need that energy drink. Or if I go to the store and I see a pair of shoes that I like, but I have perfectly functional shoes at home, I don't need those shoes. But my kid grows every, month and a half, it feels like. So he has to have more clothes. He needs those so that he, can function in school or whatever. So there's definitely, we need food for our family. We need, dog food to feed our animals, but we don't need sodas and energy drinks from the gas station.
Very, very well said, Andrea. And, we find ourselves, I think sometimes it's difficult to make these judgment calls in the moment. And Veronica, one of the things I think that is so powerful here in understanding is shifting a mindset have you ever had a scenario where you thought, this is a really important need, but is it justified to go in debt for it? This is where I think it's worth having the conversation. Do the ends justify the means? And this is, I think, one of the major issues that we fall into. It might be even a phenomenal expenditure. It might be very worthwhile. It might even be necessary in some sense. But does that make the means that which I expend the money? I'm actually, when I go into credit, I'm not spending money that I have. I'm spending tomorrow's paycheck. So unless I'm fully aware of the consequences and I'm willing to deal with those consequences, in other words, I have to cut from tomorrow's spending. I don't know whether it's my food bill, rent bill, or some other expenditure, hopefully that is not so necessary. I will not be able to actually pay for this. And if I continue to make decisions that I'm not able to pay for, if I make expenditures that I'm not able to pay for, I will be crushed beneath the load. I think here's some very wise sayings on this thing, and this is more towards the area of pleasure, but the Proverbs 21:17 says, whoever loves pleasure will become poor. Whoever loves wine and olive oil will never be rich. This isn't to do with so much as necessary expenditures, but certainly we've seen those people, we've come across those people, maybe we've been those people ourselves at times where we spend money, or we love spending money, because there is an enjoyment in spending money. There's an enjoyment in having pleasure. But Proverbs is very clear, and I think wise people over thousands of years have confirmed that this saying is very much true. Those who are out of control with their spending, those who are out of control with their love of whatever it is, whether it's cars or sports teams or whatever it be, houses, they eventually make decisions, if they're out of control, where they get crushed under. And it can be something that is a legitimate good enjoyment. There's nothing wrong with wine or olive oil, but those who become obsessed with them out of control and not able to control themselves, inevitably, always will become poor, because that's just simply how it works. You spend money you don't have, you will get crushed underneath the weight of that. But it says on the other side of this in Proverbs 21:5 that the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. So the point we're trying to make again here tonight is not that we're arguing that you can never spend this or that you don't have necessary expenditures. Absolutely, that's important to decide that, and this is why budgeting is such a vital part of our lifestyle, in terms of one of the first things we do when we have goals that we want to accomplish, and we have a certain set of means that we want to make these finances accomplish these goals. We make a budget, which is a plan to get us there. But the principle remains: the diligent prosper, the diligent lead to abundance, lovers of pleasure lead to poverty. So it's not that we can't have and enjoy things. It's that we need to fully understand the principles of what creates wealth and what doesn't. So that way we can understand and not fall into traps of blaming other people for our issues, because we recognize that we have power to change our lifestyles. It's not easy, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all on us. There is certainly outside influences that affect us. But at the core, wisdom tells us, I believe that thousands of years of human experience and civilization have told us that wise people end up with more, less wise people end up down roads that bear consequences that are not fun to handle sometimes. So why are Americans in so much debt? That's our next question. Well, generally speaking, again, I want to talk about generalities. I know that there are exceptions to this. I just want to say that from the outset. And as a disclaimer, I'm not talking about specific individuals all the time, but I am talking about generalities. The average American is, like I said earlier, the average is in what would be arguably an unsustainable amount of consumer debt, meaning credit cards, etc. Consumer meaning stuff that you bought and purchased, not like your house and not other things. It's just the stuff that you consume on a regular basis, whether it's
Can I
clothes or
interject
food.
in that? Sorry.
Please.
I was gonna say I actually really agree with you on that. And I think it starts though as more of like a lot of people I think have like an emergency, like a car breakdown, and they get a card because they have no money to fix the car. So then they do that, and then they realize how easy it is to spend on a card, and then you're like, oh, I'll pay it back. And I think it starts as a need to have one, and then it just becomes like society and the culture just trains us that it's acceptable, and we go wild.
Absolutely. So well said. And that's why I want to make it so abundantly clear that this is not a condemning conversation nor condemning statistics. This is not even talking about specifics. And some people have had horrible things happen to them. They fall into all manner of terrible illnesses that they, can't quite a terrible illness can financially ruin somebody. Let's be clear about that. No matter how much you have saved, I've seen very, very wealthy people become ruined because of cancer and terrible things that happen to them. The point is here, we're talking about general principles. And you said it, Andrea, when you said that a lot of times it starts off as something good. This is a good expenditure. And now we're not arguing that you shouldn't spend money. That's not the point here tonight. The point is how you spend money and what money you spend and at what rate you spend it. For example, spending tomorrow's money, i.e. going into debt, comes with a cost, i.e. 24%, generally speaking. I mean, that's not even an unreasonable amount on a lot of credit cards. They're 18 to 24%. I would say it's, pretty normal. So you're going to pay extra for that, and so it's just very real. You should be having these conversations with yourself at the very least, even if you are making very important expenditures. I understand that some people go into business and they spend money on credit, and they're very aware of why and what they're spending. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's important to understand that this has consequences. It's crushed many business people. It's crushed many individuals. It's important to understand how debt works, and you understand why tonight I'm explaining that, right? Because the idea here is to help equip you guys tonight to empower yourselves to make decisions that will change your future, that will allow you to be more generous with the funds. So I just want to quickly go through this. I've had it up for a while. I'm sure some of you have read through it already, but basically we would, by the statistics, the average American is in an inordinate, unbearable amount of consumer debt. The American culture is one, generally speaking, of consumerism. We consume far more than in some, depending on what you're talking about, the rest of the world combined. I think something about like 40% of our food goes to waste here in the United States. That's another stat that's not on here, but we have a lot of consumption in this country and a lot of waste in this country, and it's just kind of become normal in our culture and it's part of what we do. And again, I'm not talking from a moral high point right now or condemning any specific behavior right at this moment, as much as I'm trying to draw light to a behavior style and a normal part of our culture that has led us to this place of incredibly high debt. Because why? We want to make decisions at the bottom. We want to make decisions that are going to empower us to make a different lifestyle. So we buy because we want, with no concern for the impact. That's so often the case, as not always the case, though, as Andrea pointed out earlier. So I'm just going to go through quickly a couple of these ideas of what materialism is and how it started. But basically, psychologist Alan Cantor said feelings of satisfaction and happiness decline among people driven by a need for financial success and fancy possessions. People who buy into values of consumer culture end up starved for close family or any deeper meaning in their lives. Money, possessions are hollow compensations for doubt, self-worth, worries, life uncertainties, and especially fears of death. What is the same? Basically, what has happened in our culture, generally speaking, is psychologists and others, and statisticians have seen the effects of increased spending in the American culture. And interestingly enough, as spending has increased in the United States, happiness, individual happiness, has declined at the same time. And it's actually been shown that there is a kind of a Goldilocks point at which a certain amount of income, there's a point at which your income does not increase your happiness. Everybody says, if I just had a little bit, or so many are tempted to say, if I just had a little bit more money, I'd be happy, right? If I just had more money, that's my problem. I don't have enough money to pay the bills, even important ones, as we pointed out earlier. But the issue here, the interesting issue that we want to point out is that happiness, one, isn't directly correlated with financial income, especially at there is, I think, the median of about 80 to 100,000, depending on how you measure it. But at that point, after about $100,000 per year for a household income, happiness does not go up in any material way, in any measurable way. And that you can say, well, $100,000 is a lot of money. Fair enough. But what that signals here in the United States, generally speaking, at least what it's thought to signal, is that this is basically the point at which you have more than enough money to have the normal stuff that it would be in America. So this is why that number, $100,000, varies widely from country to country. This is an interesting statistic that I think is very important for us here in the United States to recognize, that the happiest people, statistically speaking, the demographics of people that are happiest in the world are not Americans, actually. And that might not be super surprising to you, but what might be surprising is the happiest people demographically are those just above poverty. So poverty can obviously be very tragic and very detrimental to the soul when you don't have enough to feed yourself or your kids or your family. That's really hard on you. Justin, you can imagine if you were in a home and you were trying to feed your family, you didn't simply have enough. Your job didn't provide enough to even pay rent or pay bills or pay. But those who are, it might be surprising to you that those who are just above the poverty line are the happiest. It's not those who are wealthiest in society or those who are wealthiest globally. And actually, some of the happiest people are outside the United States, even though as a society, we are the wealthiest people on the planet. So interesting that one, money does not directly correspond with happiness. There is some correspondence, when as you get up to a certain level of income, and you have enough to quote unquote kind of go around for the bills. And in most states, obviously that's going to vary from California to Nebraska. They're going to be very different levels of income because you have different levels of needs and expenses there. But generally speaking, you have a certain amount that covers the bills, and that those are in society that are most happy are those just above poverty line, interestingly enough. So I want to go through a couple things you might have heard before, but who has heard money is the root of all kinds of evil? Has anyone heard that expression? Anybody know where that comes from?
It can
Becca,
be tricky.
Say again?
I heard it. I said it can be tricky.
It can be tricky. Yes,
Right.
yes. But who knows where this quote is from?
There's several biblical sources that say that. You can love God and hate money, or vice versa.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So is it really in the Bible? Money is the root of all kinds of evil. Well, kind of.
Not word for word.
Not word for word. It's kind of a half quote. It's actually just quoting the end of a sentence, which who knows, that's often worse than quoting the sentence itself, than completely misquoting it, because you quote a half truth and then you can say, oh, so-and-so said that. But actually what was said by Jesus is people who want to get rich fall into temptation, trap into many foolish and harmful desires, plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people are eager for money, have wandered from the faith, and pierced themselves with many griefs. And isn't this true? How many people can we point to, the famous celebrities, whether it's those magazines we've seen on the shelf at the supermarkets, or it's the stuff we've seen on the nightly news, where people with lots of money and lots of fame, lots of power have made foolish decisions and quote unquote pierced themselves with many griefs. They have done just terrible things that are like nails being pounded into you, or foolish like pricks in your skin. They just have made foolish decisions. And the point is here that the love of money is actually a key thing that, just like the love of pleasure or the love of stuff, leads to all kinds of terrible decision making when not properly kept in check. So what the list of characteristics basically of people who want to get rich, this is according to Timothy in the New Testament, they fall into temptation and trap. They fall into foolishness and harmful desires. They get plunged into ruin and destruction. They wander from the faith. They pierce themselves with many griefs. So there is no doubt a strong correlation between those who love pleasure, those who love money, those who love stuff, and bad decisions. This is one of the main points that we're trying to make. It's not that buying stuff is evil. It's not that enjoying things is evil. It's not that it's even a bad decision to do that. Many very wealthy people enjoy things and are still wealthy after it. So, but the question we want to get at specifically tonight is, can we properly steward our finances effectively? Namely, let's start with credit cards. Can they be used effectively? So for some people, credit cards might be an effective form of money management. The question, though, as we discussed earlier, is do you have the qualities in yourself, the discipline to handle the power? As I used an example of giving my little nephew a gun that he clearly isn't capable of handling, no matter how good his intentions are, even if he wants to help the household, by doing, I know not many people hunt anymore, but for thousands of years, this was the standard thing, right? You went and you hunted and you brought home stuff. And the idea here is, no matter how well-intentioned my young nephew is, he's clearly not old enough nor capable of handling such power in his hands. This would always, under all circumstances, no matter what, be a terrible idea. The question is, though, are we capable? Do we have the discipline of handling something as powerful as credit? And it's And again, this is important to recognize and not view it just flippantly, because just because it's normal in our society for people to have debt, for people to spend on credit, does not mean it's a good thing. And it does not mean that it doesn't have serious consequences. In fact, more marriages, if you're thinking about marriage, or if you are in marriage, more marriages are split apart because of financial strife and financial fighting than any other thing, according to statistics. So the point is here, I would say the same is true of not just marriage, but of relationships in general. How many business relationships, family relationships, all kinds of friendships are ruined because people are not properly able to manage money, or they get jealous about other people's stuff. The point is here, this is a heart, I would say, first of all, a psychological or a heart thing that we want to get in order before we talk about the external things. So first of all, the question is, can credit cards be used effectively? The answer is yes. For some people, yes, they can, but they have to be treated with the kind of respect they deserve. Just like a gun or a car. A car is a very useful tool, right? Everybody acknowledges that life is better with cars, but I would not let my little nephew drive to the supermarket to get me some groceries when he's not able to drive. This would always, again, be a terrible idea. Even though car is a good thing, my nephew's a good thing. I do not put those two together. Doesn't matter how good each one of them is, right? So the answer is yes, credit cards can be used effectively. We're not just beating up on them. We're very thankful for modern ingenuity and inventions like them. Credit system has done a lot of good for a lot of folks, but it also has done a lot of destruction because it's an incredibly powerful tool that has been misused repeatedly. So what we want to focus on in our final time here before we wrap up is breaking the paycheck to paycheck cycle. I acknowledge that this might be a normal thing, that it might be so normal in our lives and in our friends' lives that we can't even imagine not living paycheck to paycheck. But let me tell you, it is possible to get beyond this. And so we can talk more about this. I'm going to give you slides here that you can go over. I'll give you the slides after this that I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but I want to just highlight some of the very basics of it. The first that we want to break is a lack of knowledge of monthly income. We want to start there. Then we want to start match that up with our monthly expenses, and we want the monthly expenses to meet the monthly income. So what I mean by that is a good budget spends every dollar. It accounts for every dollar. It doesn't mean you're spending it on consumer goods, but you're making sure you have a space for savings, etc., all kinds of different things that we'll need. And again, we can look at those details here. Here's a simple budgeting tool. It just talks about, you can get off a quick start budget. You can find these online. I don't want to spend too much time on them, but here are some recommended budgeting tools, even apps that you can get for your phone. Dave Ramsey has a limited free version of Every Dollar. Again, it comes back to this idea of every dollar has a name that I think it was first coined by him. This idea that this is a proper budget, accounts for all spending. Doesn't mean that you need to spend it all on consumer goods, but that it does have a name. It goes somewhere important, and we're doing it with intentionality, not just willy-nilly. Oh, I hope I have enough money for Disneyland this month. Oh, I don't. Oops, now I'm paying double for Disneyland because I'm paying it off on my credit card. That would be a shame. That as expensive as Disneyland is, that we pay double the price or even triple the price because we spend it on credit when we could have easily made, we could have waited a month, maybe two, and made a budget and planned for it ahead of time. I personally have used Mint, love that. I've actually tracked it to some of my accounts because it connects to your credit cards or your bank accounts. There's obviously some privacy issues there that you'll want to make sure that you know about, but it can be used to a good effect and very helpful. I also use Discover Credit Card personally, which also has a spending calculator, which I regularly go over and look at where am I spending my money? How much am I spending? Why am I spending? Because it helps me then have power. Knowledge is power. And this is not something to be afraid of. I think that would be the big thing that I'd want you guys to walk away with tonight in your personal budgeting is this is not something to shy away from. And hey, there's no shame or judgment here. To acknowledge that we're not perfect in this is just the first step to say, like, okay, I can grow in this, and myself included. I am always looking to grow in this and be better at stewarding myself because honestly, I know that the more I steward this, like we said in the beginning, if you're wise with money, your finances grow. And this is something I want. I want more money. I want more finances. I want to be more of a blessing to myself and enjoy my finances and a blessing to other people, including my family and many other people that I'm able to give towards. And I want to do more of that. So the first tool is taking my knowledge and making it powerful and work for me so that I can actually do these things. And it's not going to be a quick solve, but it is possible. I just want to get that. So quick review. You know, we talked quickly about this 3 pennies idea. So the month one, a man gets a credit card bill and decides to pay $35 a month to pay it off, right? This is already when he has already a credit card bill, all right? So get this, guys. When he pays 35 from his bank account, how much did he actually have to earn? Well, 28%, we said in the beginning, just approximate tax rates, 28% income tax, 6.5% state income tax, 6% Social Security, and 1.5% to Medicare. That's because you only pay half of your FICA. Earlier, we had a higher number there, and the lawyer pays part of that. But anyway, he earns $63. So $63 from 42% of it goes to taxes, 18% interest, 15. I know I'm going quick here, but this is basically, we're getting to the cherry at the end here. And that's $15 of the 35 is interest. So $63 earned, paid down $20 in debt. So basically, all this to say that very quickly, when you allow debt to get out of control, or when you get into it at all, especially on consumer things, this is where I would quickly end this topic before sliding into the rest. When you're using debt to buy consumer goods, it's always a bad deal for you. Why? I know it's important to pay bills. I know it's important to do this, but I'm telling you from a financial perspective, and this is from a financial planner perspective, it's always a bad deal for you. Why? Because you are now paying more than the sticker price. Whereas if you manage your finances in such a way as to be able to get ahead, where you have not only an emergency fund, but you have a savings plan, you have something that grows, and you have a nest egg, so to speak, that you can use to be generous and give to others and use for a rainy day, because rainy days always come. Not every day is sunny. Even in Southern California, occasionally it does rain, and we know that it will. So if we do know ahead of time that it will, we can plan accordingly. And this is how we can get ahead with this mentality and mindset. Again, baby steps. A big thing that I keep coming back to continually. Do not despise small beginnings. Start somewhere. Don't be ashamed of where you're starting. You're starting where you're at right now. The first step in a marathon, running all 20 plus miles, is the first step, and it's training. It requires repeated the same behavior, and then you can add to it, and then you can add to it, and then you can add to it. But you would be surprised just how debt accumulates interest. Compound earnings appreciate as well, faster than you might think. And that compound earnings of making good decisions and adding to those good decisions will add up over a lifetime of a totally different lifestyle. And you'll be in a totally different place 10, 20 years from now, because you apply these very simple but very effective principles. So a couple things I want to run through real quick, just that a couple of false things, that if I spend less than I make each month, I'm good. Actually, this is something that is far more complicated than that. Why do car salespeople and realtors start with how big a payment can you afford? Is that the right question? Isn't that the common question? How big a payment can you afford? Well, the thing is, actually, if you're paying right up to the limit that you can afford, you really can't afford it, because even when you take on a debt, what they're asking is not how much car can you afford, how much debt can you afford to pay off every month with the minimum payment that they set up. So obviously they're going to sell you your $20,000 car at a premium, $35,000 maybe by the time you pay it off, right? So the question is, what is the payment for the car I need? And the need is very, can be, honestly, that's going to be a big question that you're going to want to really wrestle with and work through. But let me tell you this, the more you sacrifice now, the more you will be able to enjoy later. That's the point of sacrificing. It's not just sacrificing so I can't spend it all. But as Dave Ramsey famously said, if you live like no one else, you can later live like no one else. And what he means by that is, if you sacrifice now, you'll find yourself, because like it was talked about at the beginning of the class, interest works in your favor when you have money. People pay you money for your money. You can put money in a bank or in the financial markets, and you can earn on that money. And then you'll find yourself with, my $30,000 car actually only cost me $25,000 because I waited. I planned for it ahead of time, and I actually got $5,000 of interest because I put it in a good investment ahead of time. And I'm just using random numbers, but you get the idea here. having money works in your favor. And this is how people get more money. And it comes back to a very interesting saying that Jesus said, that to those who have, more will be given, but to those who do not have, even what they have will be taken away. And this is I don't think Jesus was saying this to be a cranky old, nasty guy. He was just commenting on the way the world works. This is the world that we live in, is that those who have more, they get more, because having money pays you. People pay you money on your money that you lend out to them. But even those who live paycheck to paycheck, they find themselves being crushed underneath the weight of this. And I'm not making judgments here of character so much as I'm just commenting on the physics of money and the way the world works. It's just, unfortunately, that people get crushed. As one of my coworkers, sarcastically commented on, it's very expensive to be poor. And what he meant by that is, you always get the raw end of the deal when you're using credit to buy things that, quite frankly, will cost you more in the long run, as I've explained this whole time. So just want to quickly go over some of these before we wrap up, because we only got a few minutes left. But the fees, late fees, overdraft, checking account fees, these are common ways to really just waste money that people who are wise with money just simply do not lose on. Another one is high interest debt. Stay away from it at all costs. Get other kinds of loans if you need a good loan to buy assets. That's a different thing than just buying consumer goods. But stay away from all high interest debt. Never, ever, ever. And that's really served me well, and I can say it will serve you well too. Purchases, think through that. Honestly, I've wanted a new TV for a long time, quite frankly. I've wanted it, and I actually have the money to buy it, but I'm trying to wrestle with myself. Do I really need that new TV? I have a TV right here. I want a new TV. I do want it. I'm going to be honest with you. I will look forward to the day I buy it, but I'm still wrestling with it. Do I really want it? Wrestle with these purchases. At least ask yourself, is this something I need? Services, paying someone else to do what you can do yourself. Man, it's good exercise to clean your car. It's good exercise to clean your house. Instead of paying somebody out of your salary to pay them, why don't you do it yourself and just make some space to do it on a Sunday afternoon, maybe? The lottery, tax people. You've probably heard the saying that lottery is a tax on people who are bad at math. And the truth is, if you went and bought every single lottery note today, you would guaranteed lose money on it, even if you owned every single number and you won the lottery because you bought it. Because between taxes and between the fees on the lottery, there is not enough to pay back even what was spent in. So people spent $20 million on tickets, maybe the lottery would only pay out, I don't know, 10 or 11 million. So the point is here, it's always lottery might be fun to play, and it's fun if you enjoy games. Like, sometimes I play games and I pay money for games, but don't think of the lottery as any kind of thing but a simple game to play. Certainly don't spend a lot of money that you can't afford on the lottery. That is just a way to get poor in a hurry. I know I'm being a little bit quick here, but I'll give you these slides that you guys can go over them. And that was just a saying that I had earlier, but I just kind of a joke. It says, if it's easy to buy a $30,000 car, just buy a $20,000 car, 60 monthly payments. And that's the truth. You do the math, you will end up paying more for that $20,000 car. Like it or not, maybe it's justified. Maybe you needed that car right now. But I'm just saying, this is a cruel part of life. You could call it cruel. You can be angry at it or whatever. You can say it's not fair. Okay, fair enough. This is the way life works. If you buy a car on credit, you will pay more than that car is worth. So just think, is this, can I sacrifice? Can I go on the bus? I don't know. Maybe it's not possible. I'm not saying that it always is. But these are questions we should be wrestling with if we're really going to get ahead and make wise decisions with our finances. I'm not going to go through the rest of this because we don't have quite enough time to go through the rest of the slides. So Dan, I'm going to turn it back over to you for some final comments. Keem, over to you, just because, sorry, we didn't make it through the entire thing here, but I will be sure, or at least I think Dan will be sure to get these slides over to you guys.
Okay, thanks Emil, and a good job staying on time. And the good news is we always give you the full story. It's just not always verbal, but we do give it to you as a follow-up to each and every class. So if you can unshare your screen, Ariel, there we go. We'll go ahead and proceed through 4 more presentations. Thank you for your patience on sometimes the speed we have to go to. We have a lot of information and we try to be thorough, and Ariel was really thorough on all of us. And the message is get rid of your credit cards, or actually maybe a better way is pay off every credit card all the time if you happen to use them. So we're gonna go to Emily next. Emily, you're gonna be sharing with us. If I can find,
Can I make a comment while you look up her PDF?
sure.
And the main reason that we're making these types of recommendations or encouraging you to think about these type of financial considerations that Ariel is so wisely sharing about is the ability to free up resources so that you can be generous. You know, a lot of times when we think back to what are some of the objections to being generous, which we talked about in week one of those objections is, well, I don't have the resources. I don't have the personal ability to be generous to the extent I'd like to be. And so today's session is really focused on how do we free up resources? How do we get out of a situation where we're not able to be generous so that we can be generous? And like Ariel said, start small with saving and your personal resources. And it's the same for being generous. Start small. And we've shared over and over again, I mean, of course, we're encouraging you to be generous with your financial resources. But if you can't always be generous with finances, then be generous with your resources, your time, your talent that aren't necessarily your financials. But that's just kind of a way to, we, as Americans, as a culture, we get into this trap of debt. And so some of the wisdom Ariel is sharing today is how do we step away from that and get out of that rut so that we can free up resources and be more generous. And I see Dan has it up, so I'll turn it back over to Dan.
Emily, why don't you go ahead? Emily, you're here somewhere, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, sweet. Thanks, Emily. And you live in the Salt Lake City area, is that correct?
Yes, I live in Provo, same place as
Provo.
Justin and Brock.
Oh, okay. Well, you have to put up with those guys. Well, we understand. So anyway.
No, they're great.
Oh, super. Good to know. Go ahead and share with us a little bit, in 3 minutes or less, about the nonprofit you chose, kind of how you chose it, why you chose it, and I'll kind of circle through on as you're talking on different parts of it.
Okay, sounds good. I'll try to keep this quick because I know we're short on time, but I chose the Pregnancy Resource Center at Salt Lake City. They offer options counseling, medical services, parenting classes, father mentoring, and abortion recovery support groups. Their general financial stats would indicate that they have a total revenue of $484K a year, and total expenses of $482K a year. Their 990 score was 16 points, not 18, because they had higher management expenses than usual. However, because their objective is to provide high quality medical care and medical advisement to people, to me, that was not unexpected. Frankly, if I could change the worksheet, I would say that the money that would have been acceptably allocated to salaries of their executives, who get none of their executives are paid, which is particularly impressive since they've been open for 38 years. But the money that would have been allocated to their executives is what's allocated to management, which makes sense. Their total management expenses in 2021 was around, let me see, I haven't, $91,142. So that's 1.7% of their total expenses. So it's too much for the worksheet. However, it's not even $107,000, which is, sorry, how does it go? $170,000, which is acceptable for one executive to be paid. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, my point is, I think they should have gotten 18, but it's whatever.
You know, when I do that sometimes to my board, I always go, they felt like an 18, so come on.
Yeah, they felt like an 18. No one gets paid. They've been open for 38 years. The only people who get paid are professional medical people giving service to women in difficult situations, and men, frankly. But anyway, the point is,
how did you find out about them or get interested?
I have always been interested in pregnancy resource centers. Feel very drawn to women in difficult situations, and especially this pregnancy resource center, like all pregnancy resource centers, believes that you have the right to medical information from professionals who do not profit off of your sexual health choices, which a lot of the options out there literally do. They have they have a financial incentive to convince you to pick one choice or another. This nonprofit gives everything for free. Therefore, they have no financial incentive. And so I really like that. They impact So impact is a little bit hard because HIPAA, we can't just be like, oh, we gave this many, this, that, and this many, that, because hello, privacy. But they have said that on their website that they've impacted 80,000 lives in total since they were founded, which I did the math is about 2,100 lives a year. And in my opinion, as a family life studies major at BYU, their impact actually is much more than what we can measure because of what we understand about how families impact communities and how building healthy family units impacts literacy rates, social mobility, financial stability, rates of self-reported life happiness, as well as sense of meaning, increased physical health benefits. I could go on forever. This is my major. So that is my presentation.
This is your major. What do you mean?
I study the research surrounding families and relationships, as well as human development and aging processes, connection, how it impacts society, la-di-da-di-da, But yeah, so their tax forms are kind of awesome. They have a lot of expenses because that's what you do when you take care of people. You spend money on their healthcare and their help. But they do a lot of really good work. So. Any other questions, or should we move on? I know we have lots of presentations to do.
Well, we're going to replay this and go half speed so we understand. I'm just kidding. You're really,
Okay, then Kevin, I'm like, oh God.
you're really fast. You're really good. You and Ariel have done a really great job tonight because all I do is put stress on everybody. So basically their management is the management mean the people that are helping to take care of the people, you think?
Yeah, so I broke down the management expenses, or rather they broke them down and I went through on the 990. It includes things like fundraising. It had some particularly high management expenses in dealing with salary and payroll taxes. And I think that's because they have paid employees who are providing things like ultrasounds for women. So, and from my experience, and from what I've learned, the healthcare industry is the most regulated industry in America. So if you want to say be a clinic, you have to do that much more paperwork. If you want to offer medical services, you have to do that much more paperwork. If you want to, so management and just doing all the paperwork and getting all of the approval and the licensing is just exhausting. At least that was my experience as a CNA. The paperwork never ended. So I assume that that's what it is. They also had some significant management costs in regards to things like insurance, which you would expect, utilities, which you would expect, equipment, maintenance, all of those things had a couple $1,000s there, a couple $1,000s there, a couple $1,000s there. So I think it's just because they have their own clinic, they have medical supplies, they have medical professionals, they have medical and medical and medical. And that's going to be a lot of management. So, but that's part of that is because they provide such a diversity of services. They're not just like, oh, we're here if you want to keep your baby. They're like, no, we want to give you options. We want to tell you what options you have. We want to refer you to, not abortion clinics if you're interested in that, because we don't do that. Or we want to refer you to adoption services if you're interested in that. And we work with them and we have programs for you if you want to keep your baby, how to parent, how to help the father of the baby get engaged, how to do all these different things. So there's just, they do support for a lot of parenting activities and a lot of different counseling, not to mention abortion recovery. If you had an adverse experience with that, if you felt pressured and now you have PTSD or guilt, which happens a shocking amount. I wrote about that in my organizational review, the statistics in regards to women who get abortions because they feel like they have no family support and or their partner is a bad person or a unsupportive person or explicitly does not want a baby. The stats are about 31% of women who have abortions have partner related reasons. And so anyway, so I love that they offer services of recovery to people who have had bad experiences with that. And it just should be there, it should be options. And I was worried that some people might feel like this is too political of a cause, but they're actually right next to Planned Parenthood. And one of the news articles that I put, the Planned Parenthood lady's like, yeah, we actually love them. Abortion is not the option for all people, but it's an option for some people. And so it gives options. Anyway, I'll shut up now. You should really move on.
Okay, yeah, got it. I have a lot of women telling me what to do on this show, so anyway, it works out good. All right, sweet, very sweet. I love that. You got such a great heart. That's just awesome. All right, this looks like Justin. Are you here, Justin? Is this Justin?
This Justin, right?
Hi, Justin. Well, you got to tell me, are you Justin or?
I know there's two Justins, so I just wanted to make sure. But I
Oh.
was scheduled for today.
You're the right Justin, so it worked out.
Okay, very cool. I'll make this
All
quick
right,
as well.
tell me what's happening, Justin.
Yeah, so I was looking at a bunch of different organizations and I settled upon this one for a number of reasons. One of them was because after watching the Poverty Inc. documentary, I was floored by some of the details. And one of the things that really looks like it impacts people the most is education. And this organization, their mission is transforming lives through education. So obviously they're a school, Guadalupe School. They started in 1966, so they've been going for 50 plus years. And they serve immigrant and refugee communities, many of which are Hispanic and Latino. And that hits home for me because my entire dad's side of my family is Latino. They're from Chiapas, Mexico, and I lived there for a year. And I saw a bunch of those people and just the need that exists for them down there, and especially when they come to the United States. And besides being just a school, they also are a fully functioning family preserving like organization. So they help families that are like starting with resources. They do K-6 education. They even do adult classes. It's really cool. And many of these families they help are unemployed. They have a low median household income. Many of them are foreign born and they're struggling to afford housing. And many of them don't even speak English. So yeah, K-6 charter school, adult education, preschool, just many different things, how they help other people. On their annual report, they reported 775 students and families were served. And of those students, practically everyone experienced increases in their math scores and their literacy scores. Let's see here. 71% spoke a language other than English in their home. And they have
Justin,
yes.
Refresh me. How did you pick these guys, or did you have some history with them? I might have missed that.
Yes. So I was looking at different organizations, and after looking at Poverty Inc., I really wanted to find an education-based organization.
Okay.
And this one especially attached to the Hispanic and Latino demographic, which is important to me because that's like I am essentially Hispanic. And my dad.
So you found it through your research?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right,
Yep.
keep going, young man.
So aside from just doing schooling, they also help kids get to school. So they bus them there. They provide nutritional meals for them at school. Their attendance rate is very high. And I thought for adults as well, this is very interesting. They have classes for adults that are preparing to become citizens. So they help them prepare for the test. And this stat was cool. Like of the people taking the test, it was 100% pass rate. They have career counseling as well, which is cool because it helps them get jobs so they can become self-sufficient and help their families thrive. They have mentors for families that are starting. They supported 36 families in the past year where they basically visit the home and teach the parents how to like feed their kids, care for them. It's really, really cool. As far as like how you can help, they have various ways aside from donating money. You can provide volunteer hours. You can become a mentor for teaching English to kids. There's a wish list for different items like art supplies or instruments for their after school activities. They host little, it's called like a Fiesta for the Future, which is a gala. There's like a silent auction. Basically, there's like diverse different ways that you can give and support this group, which I really like. So it's not just money based. They have 160 plus community members donate time to this organization last year, and that took place through tutoring children. They sometimes sponsor corporates and group efforts, and they've just done a really good job for the past 50 years. It seems they're very consistent. They have a combination of good impact, metrics, as well as good student stories and parent stories on their website. And I'm a big fan overall.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions for Justin?
I'll add they scored a 17 out of 18 on their test.
Yeah, what page, I think they were getting a lot of government grant money.
Yes, that is
where
correct.
came
And that
up.
might be partially because it's education-based organization.
It was under 1% though, if I remember.
Yes.
Oh, it's pretty low?
It's
Okay.
pretty low. They do receive government grants, but it is low. So they did score a 2 instead of a 3 on that item, but that's the only item they didn't receive a perfect 3 on. And this wasn't Justin's first choice necessarily, so he did the research and found an organization that was in line with his passion and that was local to him.
Oh, but I am very pleased to be giving to them, just to be clear. I think they're incredible.
They are, yeah. When he sent me this one, I was like, yeah, this is pretty spot on. I like it.
Also, this tax return on page 2, they kind of spell out what they do. If you've noticed, some of them tonight don't, sometimes they don't even fill it out, but it kind of gives you an idea of what they're doing based on what they're filling out on their on the tax return. They do a pretty good job on this, actually.
Yeah, that was one of the things I said to Justin is, yeah, on line 4, they've detailed their programs and how many people are impacted by each program. So we don't see that on all 990, so that's pretty good to see. And it's something I've actually said to organizations that I've worked with, you need to do a better job at just putting something in there. It's only 3 lines, and put a number and put some sentences and numbers. And that's helpful when organizations are looking at how you're doing and when they're considering grants.
Yeah, they do a nice job on this page here. Is this an annual statement, or do you know what that is?
Yes, it's the annual report from 2021 to 2022. I don't know if they released 2022 to 2023 yet, but I think this highlights good numbers.
Okay, any questions out there for Justin? Justin, very nice job, nicely put together, and awesome work, my friend.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mary. Mary, is it Mary? Is that, yeah, Mary Thomas, or is it Lucy? Is it Lucy?
It's Mary Thomas.
Okay, I got Lucy on my sheet for some reason, but
Oh, really?
it's just how.
We're on fall break, so we're out of town right now. So I'm using my 12-year-old daughter's iPad.
Oh, sweet.
And I did a little, like I did some photos. So my sheet's not that impressive because I did a teeny tiny organization.
Sure.
But can I share my content with you?
Sure. Tell us a little bit about what you got here first. It's called Bus Stop. Is that right? Do I have the right one?
Oh, it says I can't share. Darn, I did a little.
I'll make it.
For
I'll make it so you can share.
Okay, thanks.
It's Bus Stop, right? I have the right one. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Hang
called
on.
Bus Stop
It means
Ministries.
let me stop sharing, and then I'll let you share. Hang on.
Oh, thanks.
And it's Mary. We're making you a co-host, so you're like super important now.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be a co-host.
Okay, now. There you go. Okay, can you see it?
I don't see anything yet.
I just shared my
Not yet.
screen.
After you click share screen, you need to select the screen that you want to share. So make sure you did that. And then click share
So if I
again.
select screen, does that work?
Select screen, and then there's like share button.
You
again.
mentioned earlier that you're on an iPad, right? It might work.
Yes, I
slightly different.
am.
You might
Is
have
that
trouble
why?
sharing your screen, perhaps.
Yeah, it might not work.
Oh, I bet you're right. Okay. All right. No problem.
Okay.
I put together a couple pictures because I do have such a tiny organization that I wanted to at least show you something. So Bus Stop's been around for 30 years. It started at a bus stop corner off Colfax in downtown Denver. Camille Mack is the founder, and she started by handing out coffee and donuts to men and women experiencing homelessness. We got involved in Bus Stop about 15 years ago. We actually lived overseas in the Philippines, so I'd be curious as to where Ariel grew up. But we lived in Manila and loved it and worked in and out of extreme poverty and came back to the United States and were looking for a way to serve and get involved working with people living on the margins. And Bus Stop is where we landed. We've been involved ever since. Now Bus Stop is in a church basement, so now we're indoors. They serve to 150 men and women experiencing homelessness every Tuesday morning. So again, it's pretty small, but it primarily is breakfast, some extra resources. We have clothing that's donated, but mostly just friendship. If people want to pray, they have support there, and it's just really like a safe place for people to come and gather and create friendship. And again, referring out to resources if people want more. But you know, if anyone's worked with people experiencing homelessness, there's a wide you know, category of our friends there. And I'd say primarily we're working with men and women who are chronically homeless. So the reaching out for resources can be relatively rare. It really is just friendship, and we see a lot of loneliness and isolation. So Bus Stop does a handful of things. It's kind of a weekly safe gathering place, an ability for people to come inside. Again, we're in Denver. It's cold, it's snowy. We open up at 6 a.m. People are lined up and ready to come in. They can hang out until about only 10 a.m. But during that time, they get a hot breakfast, hanging out, clothing. And then towards the end of the year in October, we provide sleeping bags for every single friend that we house, basically, on Tuesday mornings. And then at Christmas, every single friend there also gets a pair of boots. So in terms of funding, obviously I don't have a 990 because we're under the $50,000. We're actually only at, I think on my form I have $13,700. So that accounts for a monthly stipend of $400 that the church supports them with. And then we actually cover the sleeping bags, and then another family covers the boots. That adds up to between $12,000 or $13,000. That's really the only funding this ministry sees. We don't have a website. We used to have a website, and it costs too much money to continue to run. No one in the organization is paid. It's entirely volunteers. $1,000 to this organization would make a huge difference. It would make a great impact. I thought about doing, we're also a foster family, so we thought about doing different foster organizations or ACC, African Community Center. $1,000 to this tiny little organization would make a huge difference just in terms of covering food or resources to those at great need.
Okay, any questions out there? Anybody? Sometimes you might get a little pushback because you've been a volunteer there for so long, so I'm not sure exactly where that'll go. The other thing I wanted to let everybody know, the 990 analysis is the form you guys have all been using. And this is our Form B. It needs a better name, like, you know, Form B or something like that. But this is what we use as the 990 analysis for the really small ones. And we can kind of give it a score based on what we're seeing here, basically. But you got a great love and a great passion. How long have you been helping them?
15 years.
15 years, okay.
Yeah. And not as much lately. Our kids right now are 8, 10, and 12, so it's tricky on school mornings.
Just get rid of your kids.
Sorry?
Just get rid of your kids and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, they actually come, and so they have a lot of friends there, and they've grown up there, and we bring all of our friends. Sorry, I can't show you my photos since we don't have a website, and we don't have a brochure, and we don't have an annual report or a 990. I at least have some photographs, so I'll send those in to you, and you can see our kids there and our kids' friends, and just it's really hanging out in a safe, friendly, loving environment without an agenda, which I think is kind of rare for a lot of our friends that are there.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody?
You were living in Manila?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. I grew up in Davao City in the south.
Okay, great. Yeah, we were actually living in Makati.
Very cool.
Yeah. We miss it a lot. Philippines is a great place.
You never know. We might do a trip again. We've gone to the Philippines one time on a big GU trip, and there's a possibility we might do another one. So you never know.
Oh, it's amazing. I'd love to connect you to the organizations we worked with down there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Cool.
All righty, Reese, are you here?
Thanks.
I think I have the right name. Reese.
Yes, I'm here.
Let me find your sheet here. It's right here. It's usually right in front of me, and it was a little off, like by an inch. So anyway, Reese, go ahead, Reese.
Okay, I am really excited about my organization. I chose the Orange County Rescue Mission.
And Reese, where do you live?
I live in La Mirada, California.
Okay, there you go.
So
Okay.
it's Peston. It's about 20 minutes away without traffic, or half an hour. The way I found out about this is my son's football coach works there. He's really involved in sobriety and all that wonderful stuff. So when I started looking into this ministry, I just felt like if I could describe a ministry that I would want, it would be this one, because it has many organizations. There's like 13 different ministries. So on my analysis, let's start with that. I saw that one Jim Palmer got like 300,000, which kind of bummed me out. So I called and I found out that he is no longer there, that the new president, as of January 2023, is the owner, or the guy that he makes Jim. What was his name? His name is Brian Crane. Brian Crane makes 202. And I asked if that was increased, and they said no. So I gave them a 3 because I looked at what they have compared to their jobs and their hours. So I used my discretion, and I felt like they really deserved a 3 because it was a 0.01363 on all the money that they've spent. And then
let me ask you a question. Did they have anybody else? What do? We have two. Were there more than 2 over 170?
No.
Okay.
But one is 173. Really?
Okay. As long as there's 2, or
yeah,
it can be over, whatever, over 170. Anyway, thank you. Keep going.
So that's where I gave them the 3. They use no grants whatsoever. So that being said, everything else they got a 3 on, except the last one. They were at page 10. They were at 18%, so there was 1 point, but I think it just much shows that they just need more funding because they're not able to balance that out. Because right now they do. I called them up and I asked, okay, how can I justify that? And they're like, well, it really is what it is. They hire grant writers. They have people doing stuff to get the funding for the fundraising because there is no grants, no government grants whatsoever. So that's really cool. The ministries that they have is the Village of Hope. They have impacted the whole, okay, so Village of Hope is like one entity of all the different ones, okay? So I called Village of Hope, and they said that their shelter alone had 229,167 meals and sheltered 76,1,400 people. Now, I know you like numbers, so I think that where's my number? They have helped in 1 year 1,484 people. Wait, no, that's not right. Oh, that's it. 14,931 people they've helped this year. They have 1,000 meals go out every day. Each meal is $2.20. They offer, the Village of Hope is the rescue center where they have like a 2-year program. In that program, it's like they're referred to as students instead of, it's just like if they're in a university. They equip them with different avenues of how to be parents, so that's one ministry. So if there's kids, and then the veterans group is there too. There's everywhere. They go out in the homeless, so it's not like you have like a shelter and they all come to you. They go out to the homeless and they feed them. They go to the jails and they pray with them and they reach out to people there too. So it's really about reaching out to the homeless and to the needy. They also have a rescue center for human trafficking. I asked them, well, how does that work? And they said that it's pretty much a shelter. They've helped 8 individuals. They've helped 9 individuals. 5 of those were children. They said that they are connected to a lot of other ministries, because sometimes what happens is when they come for shelter, they need to get out for safety. So they take them and they send them maybe out of the state. But if they're able to stay, they have a 90-day trauma program, because it's very different than homeless and those issues. So they really work with that trauma. And then if they're willing to, they put them into the City of Hope and not the City of Hope, the Village of Hope, and get them through that 2-year program. But they really make sure that they have that care that's very different. Then they work on the veterans to help them get on their feet and to become in society. Then they help the veterans' children. They help all the children with the Parent and Child Enrichment Center. So they teach the parents how to be parents. They also teach the kids, give them care. And then they have, after they get out of the 2-year program, they have another 2-year program, which is the Hope Housing, because right now housing for individuals, it costs about $2,000, so they pretty much $2,500 a month, and so people need to make about $34,000. What they try to do, what they do is they also have, when they're in the program, they have to go into a training to learn the Success Center, which gives them like how to be a dental assistant or medical assistant, or connects them with other corporations to get them jobs. And they usually try to get a job like $21 an hour to start with that. And the first year they have to stay on campus. It's a Christian organization. So the first year they have to go to the church, but they don't on Sunday and work on ministry. But then after, it's more just because of accountability, because they just need to keep them safe in one year of just being sobriety and being on track. And then after that, they are allowed to go off campus to the ministry that they want to. So it's not like they're making them to be a Christian. They're just giving them an option and just teaching them and loving them through Jesus. Have any questions? Hello.
Yeah, I've kind of a random question. So they have an expenditure for grant writing, but no grant income.
Who's this?
Sorry, this is Tim.
Hey, Tim.
No government grants.
Okay, I thought you said they had like an expenditure for grant writing, but then they didn't have income actually coming in for grants.
They don't get government grants. There's other grants that they get.
Oh, got it. Cool.
So those kinds of grants, Tim, would be from private foundations. So what the Given University Analysis Forum is specifically looking at income from government grants. So that's where.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
And their website's really transparent. They have everything you can imagine linked up to them. They're really wanting to, I mean, I looked at a lot of different ministries and they're like there. I mean, honestly, I would love to look at their business model. How am I going to get involved? I cut hair, so I'm probably going to see if anyone wants a free haircut. That's my gift, or I can cook. Just to learn more. I think it's just like, wow. They also have a medical center so they can get medical attention. They have, they said that there's like 50% are addicts or have some sort of substance abuse. 34% of the people that come in need mental illness. So they get that care, they get that love, and they get equipped. So it's really empowering the people in steps to get off the street and become a better, to be better.
Okay, sounds very good, everybody. Very good job. Let me stop the recording.